to the point of not being able to balance it because you're out of fund balance. Another challenge is to avoid further reduction in service levels for public safety and avoid further reduction in infrastructure maintenance. These are huge challenges. You can adopt this 3-year budget, and again, with the recommendation not to use the fund balance at this point because you have these things looming. But that's up to you. This is only a recommendation. But it can't be stressed enough to work together. I think the last 4 city managers, including myself, have never had a budget adopted by 7 people. It's always been a split vote on a budget. I could be wrong. That's my recollection. It would be great to get a 7-0 vote on this budget. So in light of that, I know we have a wrap-up session tomorrow, and we have an awesome city clerk who takes excellent minutes. If you could all identify the issues that you'd like to discuss, that you have an interest in, perhaps you could discuss them and solve them. Not me, but perhaps you can solve the issues that you have. And all staff will do is just we'll stick to objective criteria. We'll answer any questions that you have. If you have any issues, you'll write them down, and hopefully we can wrap this up tomorrow. And then the following Monday, adopt a resolution approving the budget.
Well, I'm going to digest this for the evening at least and come up with some questions possibly tomorrow.
Sure. If I have any now.
Doesn't matter, I can go. I'll just do one.
I should have been
I'll do one.
I always got a question. During the first discussion, we asked the Historical Society for a budget and an audit, and I've never seen that. And maybe it's just running around someplace, but I'd like to have time to review that tomorrow for the sake of discussion.
Mark, can you make that so?
Yes.
And perhaps also ask Campbell to join us?
That's what I can think about off the top of my head.
I'll have, I know staff will give me the darts when I look away, but I'll have the entire staff here tomorrow as well in case something comes up and they have more of a knowledge on their particular area than I do. Yes. So
This concludes the discussion item, and we move to public comments. Is there anyone in the audience? Mrs. Simon?
I watched the tail end of last week's meeting and I was appalled. Tonight's no different. John, with the help of our staff, has made great achievements in helping our city. But what really upsets me is we have a mayor and 2 council people that helped us get where we are. Number 1, tax cap in 2008 was proposed as a cut, not a cap, where council can no longer raise or lower the millage rate like they used to. 2, campaigning against the 1.9 general millage using unethical tactics and misinformation. 3, campaigning against the library, again with misinformation, both times saying the money was there. I think you see there is no money. And you call yourselves fiscally responsible. Last week's comments made me think you realize how dire the financial situation is, but you want to come out looking like heroes, as if you can wave a wand and magically resolve everything. You've seen the facts. Property values are down 32% from 2007. Commercial values are down overall, and the state shared revenue is down. Have you ever looked at other municipalities' budgets and millage rates? Let me help you. Millage rates. Clawson, now this is from 2004 to now, up 70%. Birmingham is up only 5%. However, they're still 53% higher than ours. Southfield up 38%, just to mention a few. We're still showing red ink in some of the areas because we're trying to maintain a bare bones city. Do you realize that projected taxes with the additional increase for refuse and debt would still be lower than the taxes you would have paid 10 years earlier? And after seeing all this, you want someone from the private sector. I'd like to know from each of you what you plan to do. What reforms are you suggesting after seeing how bare bones we already are? Also, you only had 5 minutes. Haven't you been watching Mr. Darling since you got elected? You've been working with him. Haven't you watched his performance like you did everybody else's performance before you got elected? We have a reactive police department, not proactive. How can we attract families, businesses, or quality employees in the state we're in? Not to mention the damage done to our city's reputation, thanks to our mayor.
Mr. Bloomingdale.
I'd like to start with a question. Your meeting tomorrow? At what time?
7:30.
7, oh, here? Okay. I learned a long time ago, when I first started out in supervision in the trade I worked in, that you are only as good as the people that work for you. And I think that applies to a city also. In the past 2 years that I've been at the time and interested in knowing my city, I've learned some things. But the point I want to stay with is this. This city has been built on some tremendous work by both our city council, by our city managers, but that workload falls on the people working for us. The ones that we've now reduced to 319 people, what's the number? 3.9 per 1,000 people. In addition to that, we haven't just asked them, we've sort of insisted that they take a pretty drastic wage cut, 10%. We also dug in pretty deep on that, so it was 10% of everything. Everything. Right down to the sick days that they were getting. Now, I look on this side of the room, I see approximately a dozen or so citizens here listening to this meeting. Evidently, we don't care. Now, if I sat on this side of the room, I'd be filling out my resume. I was a good superintendent. But the thing that made me an excellent superintendent was the people that work for me. And if we don't understand that, we're not going to go anywhere. This side of the room has given up a ton. This side of the room hasn't given up nothing. Nothing. Tell me, where? The only thing we've done is we've paid some higher fees, which I don't want to get into that. It's ludicrous. You tax me a millage on my house, at least I can deduct it on my income tax. I'm not going to do that for the money I pay to the Civic Center, to the gym that I go over there. To me, the critical thing that we need to address here is retaining the people that we've got working for it, improving their work environment, and getting us in a position where we can hire people that's going to perpetuate what the people in the past in the city have done. Now, I'm not really up to speed because I missed the first meeting because I was out of town. But if we're considering a millage increase, you know what? Give me as a citizen a chance to show my appreciation for a city I've lived in for over 40 years now. Give me the chance to support a city that where the 4 grandchildren that I have that are living here can enjoy the same security, the same safety, and the same boredom that my children enjoyed. Give them the opportunity. We don't control schools here, but give them the opportunity to have a good a water supply, like my grandson watched them fix last year. Give them the opportunity to live in a city that brings the benefits to us as citizens that I've enjoyed, and I'm willing to pay for that. And I say, Mayor, shame on anybody who isn't. who's lived for this city for any length of time and enjoyed the benefits that we have, and then will sit on their thumbs and refuse to support any kind of a cost to themselves. That's shameful. We're one of the most we're not only one of the biggest community here, we're one of the most prosperous communities in Oakland County. What's that say? We're not broke. We're not poor people. You get what you deserve. You want a first-class city, you pay Cadillac prices. Right now, we want to pay Chevy prices for a Cadillac city. It's not going to work. And my 3-year-old grandson can understand that, but what was showing up on his board today. I see my time's up. Thank you.
Mr. Neat?
Edward Neat. I agree with Councilman Slater on the library. I think that should stay at 6 days. And I think I agree from last week before on the historical center. That's peanuts, 25 grand a year. I did call the state a couple of weeks ago before I spoke 2 meetings ago, and I was transferred all over the place, and finally I left a message for Eva Schaefer up there. And I asked, what would the city of Troy get back for all employees paying 20% of their health care? And they said basically nothing. I did ask them about the state revenue sharing with the personal business tax. How much of that is going to go away and how much is it going to stay and be replaced with something else? And they said basically it would be replaced but not to where it is today with the personal business tax. One thing I hear people talk about is 10 to 13% match, supposedly for the public employees, police, whatever. Can somebody explain that so that residents know whether that is good, bad, extravagant, totally out of place with the 3% that basically all the major hospitals, Tier 1 automotive suppliers, we get a 3% match in our 401k or 403b. Is it outrageous? The other thing is, Councilman Teets brought up last week in the Budget Center about the unfunded pension. That, as I remember from last year, was 97% for the pensions, and Mr. Darling explained that that would be about 5 to 6 million in actual dollars. If I remember last year, health care was funded 43% for retirees, somewhere around there, unless I say, what would that be in dollars as far as what's unfunded there? So those are a couple of questions. They don't have to be answered tonight, but if you could get information on that. And the other thing is the transit center. Supposedly, if that is finished in 2 years, will the cost of running that appear in the budget, or is that where you were delving on the operational cost, not the capital cost of the project? And as far as the, again, I go back to last week when I spoke, the Prop A from 2010. If this was sent out to the public back in 2008, and people knew that, again here, how many people come to the council meeting every week? I've been here for a year and a half. How many really listen? I heard that maybe 30% listen to cable, our council, not even that maybe. So you don't have to convince me. You have to convince the 2/3 of the people that voted in February 2010 that they weren't going to, vote for a tax increase. The same thing with the library. I still say that should have stayed the Friends of the Library. It should have never happened. It should have been in the general fund. The second one that was proposed by the former council and mayor, that should have never happened. And I think that people looked at the first library as a punishment for not voting for Prop A back in February 2010. They also said, well, I'm going to change my vote to no to yes because they're really going to close the library. But I think they came back last November and said, I don't believe any of the people that were running. And we woke up the next day after the election, and the mayor and 2 other people were here, and the 4th candidate, like I said, lost by 57 votes to Mr. Campbell. And only 27% of the city voted. So, you can talk about what you talk about in here, but you got to get out to the city residents. They got to start participating. They got to start listening. So that when you see what is here in the last 2 budget meetings, that yes, now it's transparent. Let's see what we can do about a millage increase down the road if it's needed. But again, you don't have to convince me. Like I talked to you, I'm in that middle two-thirds, of the thirds. And you're going to have to convince the bottom third that will not absolutely vote for a tax increase, and then you're going to have to convince the ones that, well, maybe change their vote. That's all I'm going to say.
Mrs. Martin?
I'm going to quote Councilman Slater when I say I almost can't believe what I heard here tonight combined with what I heard last week regarding the fund balance. Looking at those slides, it's clear that what has been transparent all along still is that if we use that fund balance to fund ongoing things without any thought of how it's going to be replenished, such as a library, that money is gone. And when Councilman Slater pointed out that had we paid for that library with that money that you, Mayor Daniels, said was there, that you just admitted tonight you knew now is not, we'd be even worse than we are. You signed a letter calling it a slush fund, which means it's to be used for whimsical spending. Councilman Henderson said last week he feels it's the people's money and should just be spent on services or handed back. And yet we saw tonight, you just spend it up on services or, God forbid, refund it for some unknown reason. We're out of money. We're bankrupt. You obviously did not understand municipal accounting when you took office. You obviously did not understand the impact and the need for that fund balance and why it is there. I sure hope that you understand it now, and I think this is the clearest reason I've seen that you need to be recalled. It is ridiculous that you don't even understand what happened and that you just admitted you lied. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
What did you say?
I said that the library would have closed if we hadn't had the money because we were saying that the library was
Public comment.
Yes, sir.
My name's Jack Burt, and I came for quite a while, and then I've been off doing things. I travel a lot. And I'm just feeling the same tone here tonight that I felt under the last administration. And about that Mr. Zerlag or our new accountant there are somehow lying or misrepresenting things a little bit to us, and that there's ways we can come up with all kinds of money. I remember Mr. Fleming, who tells me he's a CPA, was doing, okay, we were doing our due diligence and we never did get it done, so we never did vote for the library, and here's the numbers. Now, you were on the council, you should have had those numbers. So maybe we got to do our due diligence a little bit better and a little bit faster and work with the people a little bit. I think Mr. Zerlag is too polite to say this to some of you people, but I think there was a feeling here that, well, we're just going to be able to go out and get more and more and more from our employees. And Mr. Zerlag, without telling you that you didn't know what you're talking about, was trying to say, you know, you might get a little bit more, but you're not going to get enough to change that chart. That was the bottom line. If you listen to the assessor, we're in big trouble as far as ever getting back to where we were for money, period, without it. So somewhere, you people are going to have to look and really look at an image increase. It's becoming more and more obvious. And I know none of you want to do that, but you're going to have to take a good look, and maybe you're going to have to do your due diligence this time. That's all.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to say anything? Thank you all for your comments, and we'll adjourn the meeting.